Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your man of the hour, the man with the power, the living legend of video game vloggery. Hello, my name is Lee Hazel, and this is Lee Sucks at Hearthstone Special Edition, where we look back at a certain thing that's happened in this latest expansion, and we see how I would have done things. Now, one of the things you've got to remember about my whole Lee Sucks at Hearthstone experiment, where I see whether or not you guys are actually going to care about seeing one of your own, a guy who is very much like you, not like Trump, not like Kibler, not like Crip, but very much the average player of Hearthstone, and all of the spins, the turns, and the little things that he gets wrong, so you guys can feel better about yourself when you make mistakes like this. And so, one of the things that I forget to mention when I was introducing this whole concept in the last couple of videos was the fact that this is not just my first time not just my first time, like, I'm not just inexperienced with Hearthstone, I'm not just the average player of Hearthstone, I'm kind of inexperienced with Warcraft in general. I've never played World of Warcraft, and it's been really exciting for me. One of the best things about getting into this game has actually been about getting into the lore and finding out about the characters and the events and all of the story beats that have happened. As long as I don't, actually have to play the game to find them out, because Christ knows, I wanted to get that, I think her name's Lady Alandra, something like that, and she's an alternative hero for Paladin. And to get her, you need to get to level 20 in World of Warcraft, and I got to about level 8, and it was one of the most dull video game experiences I've ever had in my entire life. And I was just like, no more, no more. I think the last time I played that game, my mission was to get from one side of Azeroth to the other in like 20 minutes. And it was literally just me hitting the arrow keys, going down roads for 20 minutes. And as soon as I spent like 2 minutes doing that, I just put my head on my hands and wondered what the hell I was doing with my life. So anyway, right, we're not going to do that. We're not going to get into that as a story for another time, despite the fact I just told you 3/4 of it. Anyway, this is my Death Knight concept. Now, Blizzard have done a really cool, really ingenious way of bringing the Death Knight to Hearthstone. Essentially by having a hero class card that can replace your hero with another hero that has an effect, that has a certain amount of armor, and that changes your hero power to be something really quite awesome. That's a really good way of making sure every single class gets their own go at having a Death Knight. Now, how the Death Knight class came about in the original World of Warcraft is you get your character, you level them up to I think it's the 50th level, and then you simply just take them out, you take them away, and you replace them with a Death Knight. Now, I think, if you're going to really go with that kind of concept in Hearthstone, you don't really want to take one of your 9 classes, level them up to 50, unlock all of their golden class cards, and unlock all of the golden classic cards that they've got. Classic cards? No, the original. Yeah, I think it's the original cards. You don't want to do all of that and then just completely replace your hero and never have to play with that class again. That's not something you really want to do. So how else do you take the concept of the Death Knight? Well, one of the most famous Death Knights, Arthas, he became the Lich King when he took upon the cursed blade, Frostmourne. Now, in the expansion right now, we do have a Frostmourne card, and it is, once again, it is a 5/3, and it is Death Rattle, summon all of the creatures that you have killed with Frostmourne, which is an absolutely fantastic concept, and I think a little bit, I don't know, maybe not better, it's kind of like this card here, this weapon, is sort of the big thing that I've got going on with this entire concept. But anyway, let me tell you what my Frostmourne does. Okay, you get all the way to not level 10, to 10 mana, which is about, as far as I'm concerned, I think that's the leveling equivalent in Hearthstone. You sort of level up your manas, and then each time you level up, you gain access to more powerful cards and materials. So that's what I think leveling up in the Hearthstone mana is in a more meaningful way, in a more gameplay driven way. And so when you take up Frostmourne, which is, by the way, a neutral class card. Now I know that Blizzard haven't really added neutral weapons to Hearthstone yet, and I think one of the reasons, I don't really know what the reason for that is, because they have had creatures that are neutral creatures. For example, what's his name, Medivh, who brings forth 80 Ash, and you can use that, but it's not really a weapon. It's more of a, almost like an artifact that when you cast a spell, you summon a monster of the same card. You summon a monster of the exact same mana cost. Yes, that's the one. But they've never actually just added a neutral weapon to the proceedings, to your card collection, and this would be the first. And I think Frostmourne is a really awesome weapon to give that prestige to give that privilege, because let's face it, Frostmourne is, I think, apart from Ashbringer, the most iconic weapon in all of Warcraft. It's the only one prior to doing this research that I actually heard of. And so what does this card do? Well, Battle Cry. Your hero becomes the Lich King. And very much in the same sort of vein as something like Jiraxxus or Ragnaros, when that becomes a hero, your character just turns into the Lich King. 40 health. Now, one of the reasons why I can get away with making the Lich King 40 health is because if you can somehow summon Lord Jiraxxus without triggering his battle cry, he comes out as a 3/15. Now, if we brought out the Lich King, if we could summon the Lich King with that status and have him be a 5/40, that would be a ridiculously stated card, and only hard removal, possibly an equality, would be able to get rid of him. And I think when it comes down to it, you can't really risk that happening. That's the reason why we put him in with we summon him via a weapon, so you can never just get him from the deck. You can never just bring him out from the hand, because this thing would be an absolute travesty to see it on the other side of the board. And his hero power, when you change the hero power, well, I've actually gone for, I think Blizzard have done a really good job as well, and I think we both came up with the same concept. If you're going to have a Death Knight, then you need class cards for that Death Knight. So you need some way of producing them. Now, Blizzard have obviously gotten Arthas, and they've gotten the Lich King card that comes out and draws you cards like Ysera does, from a deck very much in the same sort of vein as Ysera's Dream cards. But I have decided to put this in with a hero power. You pay 2 mana, and you draw a card from the Death Knight deck. Path of Frost I thought was a particularly good little Death Knight ability to name this hero power after, and I actually really like that little symbol there. So what you're doing, well, these are a bunch of really understated cards that have got understated, no, really great value for mana, because firstly you have to pay the 2 mana to actually draw the damn things, and secondly you then have to pay them. So I was kind of thinking about how much mana would I give this card if it was a normal card. I then reduce that by a couple of mana, and then I reduce it by 2 more to compensate for the fact that it comes out via a hero power. And what is our first death card deck? Card from the Death Knight deck? Oh god, I messed that up, didn't I? Oh well, anyway, it's Anti-Magic Shell. And I know that Anti-Magic Shell is already a card in the Death Knight deck, but I gotta be honest guys, I think my card's a bit more interesting and a lot better. 4 mana, Anti-Magic Shell. You are immune to spell damage on your opponent's next turn. Imagine the Freeze Mages looking at this card and shuddering. Imagine, essentially this is like almost a neutral ice block if you're facing a freeze mage. Now, I gotta say, I have a particular hatred of freeze mages. There's something really aggravating about getting them down to 1 health and there being absolutely nothing you can do about the oncoming storm of fire and frost and fury that they're going to plant your face with. So yeah, that's kind of the whole theme behind this card. I really hate freeze mages, but as well, this also means that things like Soulfire, Hammer of Wrath, Avenging Wrath, all of those kinds of cards, Lightning Bolt from Shaman or Lava Burst, they cannot harm you. They cannot do anything to you. So you've given yourself time. You've given yourself a window in which you can heal, in which you can build up a wall of taunt, in which you can take down your opponent for 1 more turn and then see if you can take them down with an injection of lethal damage on your next turn. I really like this one. The next one, Dark Command, force an enemy minion to attack a friendly character. You might have noticed I've taken all of these names from the Wikipedia entry for the abilities that the Death Knight has, which I think when you can actually just pull the class stuff straight from, you can pull the names of your class cards straight from the things that your class can do in Hearthstone. I think that just gives everything a bit more of a richer, a bit more. It connects everything so much better to the source material, I think. And Dark Command is all about taking an enemy character. Now, you play this on your turn, but then you select the enemy minion on your turn, and then you select the minion that they are going to attack and force a really, really disfavourable trait. Perhaps you're facing a Ysera on the other side of the board, and you want that Ysera to attack your 2/1 poison creature. Say if you're a druid and you've got the new the druid cards that produce the 1/2 poison spiders, so you can just get rid of that Ysera and not have to deal through the 12 health that card has. Say you want to say you know the other guy's never going to trade. Maybe they've got, for example, say a Bran Bronzebeard, and then they really want to protect Bran, but you're like, no dude, that Bran is going to go head first into my Tyrion Forging. And that is just it for your Bran. Okay, next one. Death Grip. Freeze all enemy minions, and when they defrost, deal 4 damage. Probably the first one I actually came up with. Sort of like the combination of the Frost Nova as well as Flame Strike. Kind of a bit... I don't know whether or not I would have this card mean that if you silenced a minion with Frozen, technically they're defrosting. Would we still take the 4 damage off of them? I actually think there should be some defense against the dealing the 4 damage, so I'm going to say yes, silencing would negate the damage effect. I think that should happen. But anyway, yeah, like I said, the Death Knights are all about murder, blood, death, and they're all about the cold freeze of winter. So freezing is an obvious thing that you've got to be able to do in this game. Let's have another look, and Death Strike, Lifesteal. Now, actually, funnily enough, this card, when I first came up with, I came up with these concepts months and months ago. I think when we first started playing Hearthstone, and people were internet was already rife about how we were going to implement the monk and how we were going to implement the Death Knight into Hearthstone, because the original game only has the original 9 classes in it. And I thought that and I came up with this concept, and then Wickerflame Burn Bristle, and it had the same text on it as Wickerflame Burn Bristle, but now his text has changed because the Life Steal mechanic has come out. And so, last little thing I did before I started recording was I changed this to Lifesteal, deal 15 damage to a minion. That's, this is your Meteor, but it's not just Meteor, it's also a mini Reno Jackson effect, which I think, this is really going to help you out in a pinch. This is a huge obviously you can't do this to face. Obviously you can't deal 15 damage to face, not even if you're a Death Knight, because that's just going to be broken so quickly. Next one, On a Pale Horse. When I saw that there was an ability in the Death Knight called On a Pale Horse, I essentially ran. Like, I absolutely went out of my way to try and create something that would fit this concept, and I think I came up with a pretty decent one. Summon a 6/6 Pale Death Charger. And what does the Pale Death Charger do? Well, the Pale Death Charger has Taunt and can immediately attack a damaged minion. A bit warrior-y, a little bit warrior-y, but I think this card really works, and I think it fits in with the Death Knight stuff, because the Death Knights have this tendency of trying to victimize, seeing somebody who's perhaps a little bit weaker and just absolutely destroying them. 3. Raise Ally. Discover a dead friendly minion. Now, I'm actually quite certain... yes, there it is. Eternal Servitude. Eternal Servitude actually came out and is basically this card. Now, I've made it 3 mana. Eternal Servitude is 4, and I forgot. I was trying to make this as authentic as possible, so the fact that I didn't discern whether or not you add the dead friendly minion to your hand, or whether or not you just summon it outright, I'm kind of annoyed at myself by that. But Eternal Service says that you summon it, and it's only 4 mana, which kind of makes me... then again, maybe because it's a priest card. Priests class minions aren't all that grand. Maybe that's the reason why it's only 4 mana, but I think at 3 mana I was going to suggest putting it in the hand. But now that I've seen for Priest it's 4 mana to just outright summon it, I think I would say I would do the summoning. I'm actually really kind of surprised that Blizzard made that card for only 4 mana. I think 5 would be probably a lot more fair, considering, imagine summoning a Lich King for 4 mana. That's going to drive your opponent absolutely insane. And anyway, lastly, we've got Wreaths Walk. Now, I've not actually put in any genuine minions in this deck. They're all spells, but 3 of them, the last 3, actually summon minions, actually create minions. Yeah, I've not actually created any actual minion cards. I do certainly have cards that summon or discover other minions. I think the only minion that I've really created is the Death Charger in the Death Knight vein. But then again, the Death Knight cards in the Death Knight deck itself, the one that Blizzard actually produced, is 7 spells and 1 weapon. 7 spells and 1 weapon. Some of those actually produce quite a few minions, and wow, Army of the Dead is just an absolute beast if you've got 5 cards and you produce 5 enemies. But yeah, so with Wreaths Walk, I've got Discover an Undead and summon it and add 1 to your hand. Now this is actually quite a contentious one, because this shows you how wrongly I predicted something that I thought we'd definitely see in the new Knights of the Frozen Throne expansion, which was the undead mechanic, the undead tribe. I thought, just like we got elementals with Ungoro, just like we got mechs with goblins versus gnomes, that Knights of the Frozen Throne would give us undead creatures, and go back and retroactively, for example, the Skeleton Knight, the Gravedigger. Is it the Gravedigger or is it the Undertaker? I think it's the Undertaker. But anyway, all of those cards would then get the word undead planted on them, and then we'd have a bunch of undead cards. And this one is a particularly powerful one because you can discover an undead. So probably something like the Lich King is what you're really looking for. You would summon it, both summon it and add one to your hand. So you get the immediate effect of having it on the board immediately, and also on the next turn you can play it for an added battle cry effect, which I think is really good. Anyway guys, that was my walk through what my deck of Knights of the Frozen Throne Death Knight cards would be. I'd love to know yours. Please don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe, and please put in the comments and start discussing what you guys would absolutely love to see if ever Blizzard would ever add anything to the Death Knight cards. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time.